The obelisk had stood for 10,000 years at the heart of the Galactic Council chambers, its crystalline surface pulsing with the accumulated wisdom of 100 civilizations. It had predicted the rise and fall of empires, calculated the trajectories of stars, and assessed the survival probability of every sapient species that had ever approached it. In its entire existence, it had never been wrong, until the humans arrived. Elle stood before the ancient structure, her worn leather jacket looking absurdly casual among the ornate robes and biomechanical exoskeletons of the assembled delegates. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her boots, scuffed and repaired more times than she could count, planted firmly on the polished obsidian floor. "The calculation is complete," announced High Arbiter Zixthol, his tentacles writhing with barely concealed satisfaction. "The obelisk has determined that any attempt to navigate the void breach to rescue the stranded colony of Kepler 442b carries a survival probability of 0.000%. A murmur rippled through the council chamber. 2,000 colonists, humans, Centaurians, and Vela refugees, trapped on a dying world beyond a spatial anomaly that had already consumed 12 rescue vessels. The math was clear. The colony was lost. Elle tilted her head, studying the holographic readout floating above the obelisk. "So you're saying there's a chance?" The chamber fell silent. Zixthol's primary eye stalk swiveled toward her. "Did you not comprehend the calculation, human? 0.000%. Mathematically, it is impossible. No permutation of technology, no strategic approach, no variable within the known universe allows for survival." "Right," Elle said, cracking her knuckles. "But it's not negative odds. It's just really, really small positive odds that your fancy rock rounded down to 0. The obelisk does not round down," Zixthol bristled. "It calculates to the 10,000th decimal place." "So what you're telling me," Elle continued, a grin spreading across her face, "is that somewhere around the 10,000th decimal place, there's a number that isn't 0. An infinitesimally small number that might as well be. I'll take it." The council erupted in protests. Zixthol's tentacles turned a deep purple, a sign of extreme agitation among his species.
"This is madness."
"The obelisk has never been proven incorrect. Every species that has ignored its calculations has perished." "Yeah, well," Elle said, turning toward the exit, "humans have a pretty solid track record of doing impossible things. We'll add this to the list." She found Frankie in the docking bay, elbow deep in the engine core of their ship, the Longshot. He was younger than Elle by 5 years, but his hands moved with the confidence of someone who'd been rebuilding hyperdrives since childhood. Grease smeared across his freckled cheek and his blonde hair stuck up at odd angles. "Let me guess," he said without looking up. "The magic space rock said we're all gonna die? 0.000% chance of survival." Frankie whistled low. "That's pretty specific, right?" Ella climbed into the cockpit, running her hands over the controls. "So I figured good odds." He laughed, that reckless sound that had gotten them into and out of trouble across half the galaxy. "When do we leave?" 15 minutes. I need you to recalibrate the shields to oscillate at randomized frequencies. If the void breach is what I think it is, predictability is what kills ships in there." "Randomized? Ella, that's insane. The power fluctuations alone could tear us apart. The obelisk already calculated every rational approach. They all fail. So we're going to do something irrational." Frankie wiped his hands on his coveralls and grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." The Longshot departed without ceremony. The council had forbidden the mission, but they couldn't stop it. Humanity hadn't signed the compliance accords. And technically, Ella and Frankie were private citizens, operating a civilian vessel. The void breach materialized ahead of them like a wound in space itself, a writhing mass of contradictory physics where the laws of nature went to die. Debris from the previous rescue attempts floated at the periphery, twisted into impossible geometries. "Shields at random oscillation," Frankie reported from the engineering station. "This is either brilliant or the dumbest thing we've ever done. Why not both?" Ella pushed the throttle forward. The ship plunged into chaos. Reality bent. Time dilated and compressed. The hull screamed with stress as forces that shouldn't exist tried to unmake them atom by atom. Elle didn't fight it. Instead, she let the ship tumble, using the random shield fluctuations to create unpredictable pockets of stability. She navigated by instinct rather than instruments. because the instruments were showing them in 3 places at once. There, Frankie shouted, pointing at a scanner reading that made no sense. The colony's distress beacon, it's everywhere and nowhere. Elle understood. In a place where normal physics failed, the beacon wasn't broadcasting from a location, it was broadcasting from a probability cloud. She aimed for the center of uncertainty and fired the engines. The long shot emerged into a bubble of stable space, an impossibility within an impossibility. The colony ships floated there, battered but intact. Elle immediately began docking procedures. We've got maybe 5 minutes before this pocket collapses, Frankie said. We can't take everyone. We're not taking everyone. We're giving them our cargo of collapse field generators. They can create their own path out. Those generators cost. I know what they cost. Get them transferred now. 4 minutes and 30 seconds later, the long shot and the colony convoy punched back through the void breach. Ella used the same chaotic, irrational navigation that had gotten them in. Behind them, the breach sealed itself, as if reality was offended by what had just occurred. When they docked at the Galactic Council station, Zixthal was waiting. This is impossible, he said, his voice hollow. Elle shrugged. Yeah, the Obelisk mentioned that. Guess it missed something in its calculations. What could it have possibly missed? Every variable was accounted for. Human stubbornness, Frankie said, appearing beside Elle with a grin. And really good coffee. We had a whole thermos. Zixthal's tentacles drooped in defeat as Elle walked past him. Behind them, the obelisk pulsed with light, its crystalline surface displaying a new calculation. Probability of human success against impossible odds. Calculating. Error insufficient logical framework. Elle glanced back at it and winked. That's what I thought. As they walked away, Frankie leaned over. So what's next? I heard there's a star eating a dimension in the Andromeda sector. They say it's completely unreachable. Sounds like good odds to me, Elle smiled. That's what I'm counting on.